Hello everyone, I'm just going to go through some of the Q&As that the developers on Drakantos went through. They did this on a stream with Zeus Ghosts, but it was in Spanish or Portuguese, one of the two. And we were just, as English speakers, wondering, what this was about. And there was a Reddit thread on this that kind of broke down everything and translated a lot of the stuff into English, which we're greatly appreciative of. And I just wanted to kind of go through that and put it in a nice, easy format to look through and hopefully answer some of these questions that a lot of people have been having. So let's dive right into it. So right off the bat, Frost, who's the game design director of Drakantos, just wanted to kind of thank everybody for the opportunity to connect with the community, which is always great to know that the devs are wanting to be in line and communicate with the gamers, the people who are enjoying their products. So that's always good to hear that they want to be able to do that, and they are looking forward to doing more of it. And they kind of shared that the objective of this beta was really to test player reactions, the progression, and the leveling journey, as well as, kind of do a stress test of the servers, make sure they can kind of get the infrastructure on that right, so that they will have a better launch when we do hopefully go into like early access or full release. They did consider the beta a success, and I guess they got a lot of attention in Europe and Japan overall. And they also said that the character popularity kind of varied by the regions there, with they gave the example of Yuki and Yura being favorites in Japan due to kind of like the cultural differences there of Kitsune and Samurai. So they kind of gravitated towards those characters a bit more, which definitely makes sense. And this beta was designed to be a small and controlled beta, kind of aiming to provide, a pleasant experience for the players instead of opening it up to so many people and risking technical issues. They did monitor the servers and released additional keys as the beta progressed, and it looks like they reached a peak of about 10,000 players while maintaining control over the player count. I know that in the Discord, Nina, one of the community team members, mentioned that at the start of the beta, there were about 150,000 applicants through Steam that were trying to get access to the server. And it's kind of sad that, 140,000 of those people didn't get access. But at the same time, the point of this test was to really provide a pleasant experience, like they said, and just to kind of stress test what they could. It does make me feel sad for those people who did not get access there, but luckily there were plenty of people streaming the game, and now there's a lot of videos coming out as well about the game. So hopefully they can enjoy it that way, and when we hopefully head towards full release or early access, I'm sure we'll have the infrastructure ready for that. They go on to say that the percentage of the game content that was available during the beta is hard to really estimate in the grand scheme of things, but they did mention that more content is yet to be revealed, including things like in-game quests, additional monsters, bosses, there's a lot more coming, and this was really a small look into the big picture of what's going to be happening here. They do mention that they're preferring to finish the English version of like voiceovers in the game files. I played the English version, so I wasn't aware that the other languages didn't have voiceovers, but they are looking at the possibility of expanding that after they get the English version done, I guess to appeal to a wider audience that way. But they will look into getting, professional studios to do localization for those other languages. And then next they kind of jump into the big question a lot of people have, and that kind of revolves around the monetization and the business model of the game. They have gone kind of back and forth on this, and it looks like they're still kind of up in the air. They say it's a complex topic, which makes sense. The team's had a lot of discussions about it, and some of the options include free-to-play, buy-to-play, skins, cash shops, but no final decision has been made yet. They're still deciding exactly how they want to do that. They have said that the chosen model will be a free-to-play game with an optional subscription, similar to games like Albion Online, where the subscription gives access to all the content, and the free-to-play gives access to a good portion of the combat, but some of the more desirable content probably will be behind that subscription there. The team does value visual progression and doesn't want cosmetics to be easily purchased. They prefer that players earn them through gameplay, which is always great to hear. There's nothing worse than finding somebody who looks really cool in the game, and then you go to the shop and it's like, oh, they just spent $50 and now they look cooler than I did, and I did the hardest content in the game. So it's great that they are planning on having some cosmetics in the shop, but the really higher end ones, that they want that visual progression to matter, and people to be able to look at somebody and be like, oh wow, they achieved something big in the game, that they're great at PvP, they're great at PvE, they just killed a new boss, whatever that may be. So it's good to know that they do value that, so that it doesn't become just if you want to look cool, swipe the credit card. There are plans to also implement a hero selling system similar to League of Legends, where some characters are locked and can be bought with in-game currency or real money. And they do also add to that free-to-play players will be able to buy these subscriptions and everything using in-game currency as well. So it's going to be similar to, I think they mentioned like RuneScape and games like that, where you can use your in-game currency, like in-game gold or VINs, I think they call it in-game. You can, buy that from other players. You can buy the currency that you use to, buy the subscription, probably buy these skins as well, things like that. So there are options for free-to-play players to be able to really play free-to-play and get all the content. You just have to maybe work a little harder for it, which makes sense. Instead of paying the money, you're spending more time in the game to make sure you can, keep that subscription going. And they also mentioned that they are aware of the need for regional pricing. This game has a very, regional following. A lot of Brazil players, like they said, in Europe, they've got a lot of Japan interest now, and of course in America as well. And currency isn't the same everywhere, so they are looking into regional pricing and trying to make sure they are implementing those localized prices for both the in-game currency and the subscriptions. So they are trying to make that as fair and reasonable as possible, so that players in some countries that might not have as much purchasing power are still able to play and enjoy the game, which is always great to hear, that they're looking out for the players, not just their pocketbooks. And they were asked about like pre-orders and things like that. They said due to the Steam platform rules, pre-orders aren't something that you can do through Steam, but a founder's pack might be available after launch, like something that maybe probably gives you some, cosmetics, perks, things like that, through like a founder's pack. Moving along into character systems and customizations, they mentioned that keeping the Brazilian community engaged and avoiding feelings of abandonment is important to the team. I believe the devs are based out of Brazil and they have a huge following there. And from what I've heard, Brazil has a lot of like in-person stuff going on as well. They want to make sure they don't lose that with their Brazilian community. They do enjoy interacting with players and are making the game out of passion with plans for events, tournaments, if the game does succeed. So they do want to keep that community-driven engagement and focus, and make sure that they are not losing sight of the community that's supported them since they first announced the game years ago. So that's always good to hear as well. And then they go on to talk about the hero system. So they mentioned like customizations and things like that, and we're saying how the hero system that they have in here doesn't really allow for character creation because it's a complex thing to do in a 2D game due to the number of required animation frames. So the team instead decided to go with more unique pre-designed characters. They do have plans for hero customization, including, color changes, accessories, different skins, which were already available in the beta. But of course, they're going to be doing more of that as well, especially if this is going to be a huge source of their, way of making the game profitable. You can definitely guarantee that more skins are coming, more color options, more accessories, things like that. They are going to make sure that there's plenty of ways to really stand out from everybody else so that you don't look like the same character as the person next to you. They want to make sure you have that expression that way. Each character does have various cosmetic options that can be unlocked and mixed to create a unique personality. We did see some of that in the beta. There is more to come. Things like different ways the gear looks. You can have a helmet on if you're at night. You can, have. I saw I think it's Yura with a hat. So there are other options that weren't available in the beta. But that they do have planned. In their Discord, they do have some like teasers of these different customizations, and also through their Steam page with their devlogs, they have posted some of that stuff in there too. So if you're interested, definitely go take a look at all that. And then they also mentioned that characters have unique personalities or reflect even in how they mount horses. They gave the example of Yuki jumping while mounting. And I did also notice in the game, like the males, they ride the mounts straddled, like the mount in between their legs, while the females will actually sit on the side. And they're probably going to be doing more things like that. And then to kind of wrap up this section, they mentioned that cosmetic skins, mounts will be unlockable through gameplay. And then there'll also be some that are able to be purchased with the in-game currency as well. So those free-to-play players will be able to buy this with the in-game currency that they buy with the Vens and the gold and things like that. So there's still a way for free-to-play players to get these skins and mounts. They just, again, have to work a little harder than the people who do the subscription model. And then they went on to talk about class balance and roles. So they mentioned how the traditional tank, healer, and DPS roles are present, but the team wants all characters to be self-sufficient with balanced DPS so that nobody really feels weak or incapable of doing things. They know that most players prefer DPS, so healing has been tied to the ultimates to encourage more active gameplay and balance roles. Then they also mentioned how the basic knight character Liam has an ultimate that grants 50% damage reduction for 20 seconds and a short window of invulnerability during the animation, allowing for defense against special attacks while continuing combos. I do know that based on I played a lot of Liam during the closed beta, and it also taunts as well. So the ability does taunt all things around you to focus on you during that 20 seconds as well. So there are those different roles in there. They did know that one problem that players who want to play as a tank or a healer a lot of times have to grind for many hours first, because these ultimates you don't get, originally it was till level 16. They did lower that to level 12, but they are looking at reconsidering the progression system to address that you only get these, role abilities later on, and you have to do a lot of content and grinding before you can really benefit from being that specific one. So like Marley's the same way. You don't really get a heal until level 12. She's the priest. Liam, in this example, you don't get the taunt and the damage reduction ability until level 12 as well. And a lot of these, things are tied to that ultimate level 12 ability that you have to build the energy for. So they are looking at possibly reconsidering how quickly you get those abilities, how the progression system works in general as well. There are some plans as well for a second class or awakening system, letting the players change their character's role. They talked about maybe a new orb system being developed to allow more build customization, and those orbs are the ones that kind of modify the abilities. So, for example, on the basic attack, it makes you attack faster. Usually on your second ability, it allows you to do a charge, where if you charge the attack for like hold the button down, it'll do a more powerful version, like with Liam the Knight. You would swing the sword harder, so you do more damage, and also pushes them back. So things like that with the orbs there. So they're looking into, or they do have plans rather, to kind of expand on that to allow further customization, so that maybe you want to play as a knight, but you don't want to be a tank. You might have an orb that changes your ultimate from a shout that taunts everything to something that maybe pushes everything back, or maybe does like a cyclone whirlwind, or who knows. They didn't really give too many examples on that, but they do have that in mind as far as what they want to do next. And then they talked a little bit more about the orb in the artifact system. Again, the orbs are what kind of changes what your abilities do, or kind of like adds secondary effects, those kind of things. And then the artifacts are those utility items that, maybe they heal you out of combat, or I had a potion that made me invisible so that things would attack other people instead of me, things like that. So the orb system allows players to enhance characters and unlock new abilities, adding dynamic gameplay with changes in skill appearance and function. I kind of mentioned this with Liam, with his charge swing there, pushing the enemy back. So it kind of changes what the abilities do and adds like secondary effects, and sometimes just completely changes the ability as well. I do have another video that goes into those abilities where I go through each of the orbs as well, so you're more than welcome to check that out. They did say the orbs can be saved in presets, so that say players can create different builds for scenarios, like if you have a PvP build or a monster hunting build or an AoE build, a roll build, that kind of thing. With the closed beta, I did see that there were 4 presets available, so you could have a solo one, a group one, a raid one, a PvP one. There's a lot of different options there, so you can easily switch between those. And then they mentioned the artifacts and trophies basically provide additional flexibility that allow players to build support or damage classes and create personalized strategies. They mentioned there's about 180 artifacts, and some are exclusive to certain classes or characters, and they offer unique combat strategies and movement enhancements. They did showcase this with, I believe, the Druid, where he had some additional movement abilities that looked really cool. So some of these artifacts do eventually really change the way you play your class, and they're not just an invisibility potion or something just utility based. They can do a lot more things than what we saw in the closed beta. They also talked about progression and character development. So the team wants you to really try a lot of different heroes and builds instead of just focusing on one. Since they're planning to monetize through hero and item sales, they want to make sure that people are not just sticking to one hero. I'm sure that everyone will have their main hero, and then there are like extra ones that they do, kind of like leveling a different class and a different MMO. But they want people to try different builds, try different heroes, really kind of explore and enjoy all of the different ways of playing the game here. Once players reach max level, the progression really becomes unified across all characters, allowing the use of shared artifacts and trophies. They spoke a little bit more about trophies as well, saying that they give passive effects like cooldown reduction, damage boosts, movement speeds, things like that, and can be equipped to build custom characters as well. The trophies are global and usable by all characters, so they're like artifacts like that. They can be purchased with special currency earned in the Colosseum. So I did see the Colosseum adventure in rank 5 there. I don't know if that's always going to be starting in rank 5, but I did see that in there, and there are like special Coliseum currencies, and Coliseums, it's like a PvE arena where it sends like multiple waves of monsters, and you compete in that. And you do that, you get the currency, and I guess you can buy these trophies that way. And then they mentioned that a test mode to try out these classes and abilities would be ideal, so the players can kind of plan builds without having to grind the resources first, or buy something that they think is will do one thing. They try it out, and it's like, oh, it doesn't work that way. So they did say that's ideal. So this isn't something they are going to do. It's something that they want to do. That they know that they see the importance in it. So it is on their radar that there's probably a need for a way to test these out before a purchase is made. And if they don't do that, I could definitely see them doing like a refund system where, if you purchase a trophy and you try it out, you have like 24 hours to return it. Or something like that. So that could be a quick fix, and then eventually do a test mode as well. Would be great too. They spoke a little bit about controls and UI as well. They mentioned a lot of people were complaining about body blocking, especially for the melee players. I did experience this a lot, being the warrior class there. A lot of times there's a team member, like you have another melee in the group, and there's a monster in front of you, behind you, and to the left side, and then to the right side there's another player, and you couldn't move. So it was really hard to dodge abilities and doing that. They are considering removing it between allies, so you could still move through your team, but obviously you still wouldn't be able to move through a monster or a boss. You'd still have to maneuver around that, but they are considering removing that body blocking from allies, so you can still walk through your melee DPS party and be able to avoid those things, which I kind of enjoy the body blocking. It adds a sense of realism, and beyond the realism, it also provides an opportunity for to reward planned gameplay around this kind of stuff. Teach players a little bit more situational awareness, that kind of thing. But I can definitely see how it's a noise thing that might not need to be in the game. They also mentioned how mouse aiming was a major complaint as well, how you can't really aim an ability with a mouse. You could click on a monster and select that from with your mouse there, but you couldn't like hover over a monster, press an ability, and do it in that direction, or anything like that. They do want to implement mouse aiming and things like that, but they want to do it cautiously to avoid giving an unfair advantage to people who use a mouse, which does make sense. I know this is also going to be released on consoles and potentially mobile down the future as well. What you don't want to happen in this kind of situation is, let's say a healer, for example, people ask for a screenshot showing that you can mouse over heal because that's the optimal way to do it, and then not inviting or not accepting people into a group because they don't use a mouse and things like that. You don't want that to happen. You want a positive experience for everybody. I do feel like inhibiting one play style because other play styles can't take advantage of it also feels bad for the people who do use a mouse. But I could definitely see the rationalization they have and the caution they want to do, to where they make sure that the gameplay is fair amongst everyone in all play styles, without saying, well, if you want to play this game, you have to go buy a mouse, which means you have to play on a computer, which means you have to go buy a computer if you don't have one. I can see the reasoning behind it. And while I don't 100% agree with it, I do see why they're being so cautious with it. They said that skill buttons can be bound to the mouse, which I did do that on mine. But obviously the default's going to use hotkeys because not all mouses have 6 buttons on them. I've got an MMO mouse because I've played a lot of MMOs, so mine was really easy to do, and the I was able to remap everything super simple. It was great. But obviously that they still need to make the default something that everyone can do. So if you're playing with a keyboard, all the buttons are on the keyboard, and if you want to move those to a mouse that you have, you can absolutely do that. They are testing mouse-based movement. It could cause problems due to the game's tile system, because you'd have to click right on the tile in order to move that, or they'd have to figure out if you're clicking between two tiles, which tile you are meaning to go to. So that definitely makes sense as well. I personally don't think that mouse click movement is that important, but I do see how some people might want to do that. Coming from like an ARPG space there, like games like Diablo, Path of Exile, Last Epoch, things like that. Some people do prefer click to move, and if they plan on doing mobile, they have to do that eventually either way anyways, unless they do I guess they could do a directional pad on the mobile screen too, but there are some issues with click to move in a tile-based system, so they'd have to work that out, but it is something they are testing, so it is something they're actively working on. So if that's something you want to be able to do, they are planning on providing that to you. They did get some people complaining about the tile-based movement as well. So the game does use a tile system for movement. So if you press up or W in my WASD setup there, you move a predetermined amount to the north there. You move up that much to the next tile, and similar with left, right, down, all that. Some people interpret this as lag, like they're used to they're used to the idea that as you're holding down W, you're moving, and then once you stop pressing W, you stop moving. But this is once you stop pressing W, you finish moving to whatever tile you were already told the game you wanted to move to. So people who maybe didn't grow up playing on an NES or an SNES aren't used to this, and they kind of interpreted it as game lag, when to me, somebody who did grow up on NES and SNES, it felt completely normal. Yeah, I was very used to it because I spent my life playing these kind of games. So they did say that there was a old input lag system that they're removing. There was like a 50 ms delay or something like that, that they are removing from the code to improve character responsiveness. But a lot of people, the biggest barrier to entry in this game, I feel, is going to be that movement system. So they do need to find like a sweet spot of honoring the tile-based movement that they've already built the game around, while still making the game feel responsive, so that people who want that feedback and the ability to feel like it's not laggy, it has to feel good. So that is something they have to get right. And while a lot of people were complaining about it, a lot of people were also saying that they enjoyed the tile-based movement as well. So I don't think the tile base is going away. I think they just need to work on making it feel better, so that when you move, it feels like what you were trying to do and not what the game was interpreting that you wanted to do. And then they also mentioned that animations can make characters feel stuck or slide during movement or attacks. They said that they might be, trying to move those towards prioritizing the gameplay fluidity over the animation style. So they are keeping that in mind, trying to make sure that you feel like you're in control of your character, whether you're moving or attacking or using abilities, that kind of thing. And while they do want things to look cool with the animations, they also need to keep in mind that they need to prioritize the gameplay fluidity and make it feel good before they make it look good. So they do have that on their radar as well. They also talked a bit about gameplay improvements and adjustments, things that they kind of plan on doing for that. They mentioned that monster attack zones are being improved for more visual clarity and understanding, which is always important in these kind of games. Any action game. You need to be able to interpret what's going on without needing, like take Diablo for example. It's hard to know what's going on in current Diablo games because everything's the same color and it's just impossible to see, especially if you're even remotely colorblind. They're also making adjustments to enemy visuals as well to make attack areas clearer to avoid confusion. I'm hoping this means like when a monster is about to stomp the ground or something like that, maybe it has like an indicator on where they plan on doing that, how far you need to be away from that. I hope that's what they mean. They also mentioned about the harpy designs. These harpies, I hated them at first until I realized how to deal with them, and then I still don't like them, but it does provide like a fresh thing where you have to know how to deal with them, and that's always fun, like learning how to do it. It's annoying at first because they just kind of stomp you and you're trying to swing at them, you can't hit them, and then you realize you have to kind of knock them down while they're swooping down at you. But they said that the design was well received, but they didn't want to mention who designed them either. So it was kind of a funny, like, yeah, we're not going to throw that person under the bus. They mentioned the game has beautiful graphics, but lacks diagonal movement animations due to the number of sprites needed for that. So some people were saying they wish if they move like southwest, that their character would face southwest, where right now it's whatever direction you were facing before you moved southwest. And same with, northwest, northeast, southeast, all that. So they know that people want it, but it takes so many more sprites to be able to do that. So it might be something to add in the future. Who knows? If enough people complain about it, maybe they'll do it. But personally, I'm fine with, there not being diagonal sprites. But I wouldn't be mad if they did it as well. It would add a little bit more realism to it, but then they'd have to make like a standing diagonal sprite. So it's a lot of work. And while they haven't said they don't want to do it, they have said that it takes a lot of time. A lot of art assets need to be made for it, and that could be put towards making the game releasable. So I'd rather them focus on that first and then maybe do diagonal movement later. And then they were asked about where they got the inspiration from, and they said that the classic 2D games like Zelda, Pokemon, Stardew Valley, I think they mentioned Chrono Trigger as well, that don't have diagonal animations. So it's not uncommon for these sprite-based games to not have those diagonal movements. So that's where they got the inspiration from. And as far as making the game work and releasable, you don't need diagonal sprites for that. So I would rather them focus on finishing everything else and then potentially coming back and doing those diagonal movements. They then talked a little bit about game modes and social features and guilds. They mentioned that their PvP is actually easier to implement than the PvE, and that they do plan on adding 3v3 PvP modes with objectives similar to Brawl Stars. So if you're familiar with that game, they do draw some inspiration from that. They want competitive PvP with balanced gear, whereas player skill matters most. So it's not just about how much gear you have or what class you are. It's about your skill, and they want that to be kind of balanced around that. Probably balanced around the 3v3 as well, because 1v1 balancing is, if I would if anyone has a game where 1v1 PvP is balanced, let me know, because I have never seen it. It's always a rock, paper, scissors. But 3v3, yeah, you have one of each of those and it's supposed to balance out, And then they said that guild versus guild systems won't be in at launch due to priorities, but they might come later. So this is something that a lot of these styles of games do enjoy, having this guild versus guild conflict and fighting and balance and things like that. Games like New World, where maybe you take care of territories and games, so there's a lot that can be fleshed out with that. but they're prioritizing other things. So it is something that they at least know that people care about. They haven't said no, just not now. And then they mentioned about how the dungeon invasions allowed dynamic PvE with PvP elements. This is where, and sometimes in an adventure, you might get a contract from a mercenary that says, "Hey, I want you to go to this other group and wipe them out." So you actually go to another adventure that another group of players are playing through, and your objective is to go and kill them. They haven't said if that would actually end their adventure. I don't think it would. It's probably just kill each of them once kind of thing, or get 3 kills or something. And then if you die, you're out. You fail. So we didn't see that in the beta. We don't know how that exactly works. It'll be interesting to see. I'm personally not a huge fan of forcing PvP on people who are doing PvE. I don't like open world PvP. I don't think it ever is truly consensual, and that's where the issue is with it for me. But it'll be interesting to see, as long as it doesn't ruin the PvEers gameplay, like it doesn't ruin their run and lock them out of it or anything like that. So we have to wait and see how that really looks. So that'll be interesting to see, and I could definitely foretell that there's going to be a lot of people who are not happy when that happens to them. And on the flip side, there's going to be a lot of people who see that as an opportunity and say, yes, I've been waiting for this. I super enjoy going into another adventure and PvPing somebody. So there's always 2 sides to every coin. It just depends on which side you like. But it'll be interesting to see how they really do that. They also mentioned that there's a Hellgate mode that combines PvE and PvP mechanics. So that's going to be interesting as far as how that works out. They said that guild features like castle fights are under consideration, but also won't be available at launch. This will go more than like those guild versus guild systems where maybe you have a guild hall and you can go and attack somebody else's guild hall, that kind of thing. It's under consideration, but it's not something that they're focusing on. They have other priorities than guild versus guild. They do want to make guild systems that are designed to be engaging without being mandatory. They don't want you to have to grind out guild points or anything like that, but they do want to make systems that encourage it. But it's not going to, give you a lead over other guilds who aren't doing it or people who aren't in a guild. So that they do want to be careful with that. And they also mentioned that guild mechanics in general are still under development, and they're going to be tailored to player feedback. So once we do get a release of this guild, or maybe if there's going to be another beta test where guilds are available, that is something they are looking for feedback on. So join the Discord. They're on Twitter as well. You can always DM them on Twitter or at them. X, I guess, is what it's called. Whatever you want to call it. I still call it Twitter. It's still a bird. No, it's actually the X now. But anyways, they are looking for feedback on that. So if there's features you want in there, once we have a way to test them or see what's available, definitely give them feedback because they are looking for that. They talked about open world and exploration with that as well. The game focuses on mission-based progression instead of open world, go kill 10 boars, bring me their livers kind of things. They want you to really be in those adventures and those missions. But they do put a good amount of stuff in the open world. I know I did enjoy going through and finding treasure chests and puzzles and things like that throughout the open world. And there were rewards with that as well. That they had these chests that would spawn monsters, and you got a decent amount of XP. It was actually something you could do instead of just going and going through adventures and everything. you don't get as much targeted items. So like you can't target farm like gear or dyes or mounts, pets, things like that. But you do get random rewards from these chests as well that sometimes do include those items. So it is something where maybe you don't want to go and join a group or anything. You just want to run around the open world, or you have more fun doing that. Or maybe you don't like random joining or like queuing into like a random group, but you only have you and one friend. You could definitely go around through these chests and just go from chest to chest and open them, kill the monsters, get some random loot, and then move on to the next one. And you could be leveling and progressing while you do that as well. So it was a lot of fun. They mentioned that there's over 50 chests and puzzles to discover that were available in the beta, that were bringing those open world elements into mission content. And they also mentioned that new biomes and bosses and game modes can easily be added, showing the game's ability to be modifiable. So like building their systems are what's been something they've been working on so much. And now that they've got those systems in place, they can add new maps, new bosses, new game modes, new monsters, all that. Those can be easily added now that they have the structure in place. They mentioned that the beta had 50 chests that could only be looted once. I definitely did not find 50 of them myself, but I guess there were 50 that could be single looted. They also mentioned that the resource locations, like the ore and the wood and the flowers and the mushrooms and all that, they were actually randomized daily, which I didn't notice, and I'm not sure if that's actually how that was going, because there were definitely some locations I just went to every day. There was one section that had like 8 or 9 trees that you could chop in like a very small area, so I just went there every day and got plenty of wood. But I guess they're supposedly randomized daily, and that might mean in their adventures, maybe that's what they were talking about with that. But as far as what I noticed, it wasn't randomized, so I don't know exactly what they were saying with that. That we might have to wait for the translation video with the subtitles on that, so that we can get more details on what they were talking about there. They were asked about inventory systems and economies. They mentioned that the inventory access during dungeons was disabled to prevent people from being distracted. They might reevaluate that, and I did find that odd at first when I was in like an adventure. I couldn't open up my inventory. Like the B key on my keyboard wouldn't do anything. But seeing the reasoning for this, I actually agree with that. Let's keep people from being distracted, just looking through their inventory and things like that. Let's keep them in the headspace of let's do this mission, let's get this done, and then once you're back in town, that's when you can doodle around and look at your inventory, count your ore pieces or that kind of thing. So I do agree with that. I think that's actually a really good reason that I found weird at first, but when I saw the reason for it, I'm like, that's actually very good. I like that. Don't change that. Please don't change that. A performance monitoring system is in place that tracks player contributions in dungeons, and it does reduce the rewards for people who are not participating. So I guess, as with any queuable thing, there's always going to be a situation where somebody queues in, and then maybe they just sit at the entrance, and they're like, well, if you guys want to do the dungeon, go and do it. I'm going to sit here and eat a cheeseburger. It punishes people who do that. I didn't see any kind of like vote to kick system in the parties, which I think might be something they do need to add eventually if they don't already have plans to do so. But it is good that at least they get reduced rewards, hopefully no rewards for that. But seeing that they do have something in there to penalize those players who don't contribute, or maybe they just walk around and follow the group. There's always going to be those toxic players that min-max the make it to where they can do the minimal effort while getting the maximum reward, which that's what min-max is, of course. But most players, at least from what I experienced, people weren't doing that in this closed beta. They wanted to play the game, right? So people were so excited to get in that when they did get in, they wanted to play. But I can definitely see once the newness kind of wears off and people just want to get in there, get their guild credits, and get out. They might queue in there and be like, well, I only have to hit 5 mobs once in order to get full credit, so that's all I'm going to do. Then the other people can do the work for me. So they also said that there's a way that they have a way to adjust the difficulty of the monsters and the bosses and all that if people are not participating. So the automated report systems is being improved to avoid false positives, and like if a player stays idle, the game scales difficulty for 2 players. So if somebody is just sitting at the entrance and doesn't want to participate, you don't have to fight harder mobs just because somebody's fucking around at the entrance, and they're also not getting rewards. So it would basically be treated like it's just a 2-player group. So that is good to hear that they are making plans to penalize those people and not punish the people who are participating. Always good. And they also mentioned that the world map is the same as the adventure map as well, with dungeons and bosses in different regions. I did notice this. Like, a lot of times you'd be in an adventure, you'd see a certain zone. We only had access to like the one, I think it's Sunset Prairie or something like that. Whatever the starting area was there. We didn't have access to other biomes in the world map, but I did notice that adventures in that biome were places I could go to in the real world. So it's very neat, and it kind of brings more immersion into the game. So it's really cool that they did that. I'm glad that they took that consideration, and to where these adventure maps aren't just isolated areas that you would never actually see in the game. You could actually go there and hang out there and chill out if there's an area that you like and maybe is visually appealing to you. You can go there in the world and just hang out. Maybe there's a lake in a place and you want to just chill out there with some friends. You can do that. It's really cool. And then finally, kind of wrapping things up with their last section, they talked about the future development and launch. This is another part where a lot of people have a lot of questions on, when's the game coming out? What are you working on? What's left that we haven't seen? So this section is a little bit longer, but it does have, a lot of great information in there. So they mentioned that open world development is still ongoing. There are still some new mechanics and chests and puzzles, things like that. And the story is still being worked on as well. People asked about the market system, like auction houses, things like that. There is going to be one that's going to allow players to trade items like gear and metals and orbs and pets. There are going to be some restrictions. I noticed that there are these tickets that will basically juice up your adventure. Like you can there's one where it'll increase it triples the drop rate of orbs, for example. So if you're trying to get an orb, you can get one of these tickets, put it in for the adventure, and it will boost the drop rate. If you do that, if you use that ticket, that item becomes soul-bound. It's bound to your character, so you can't sell that to somebody else later on. So they have one for like mounts and pets and orbs and trophies, and they have these tickets out there, and they're intended so that if you are looking for this artifact, like this campfire, this elusive campfire that I've tried the entire beta test to get, I could not get to drop. And then I realized there were these tickets that could triple the drop rate of artifacts in a map. And I didn't end up using them, but they do exist. So it could make getting these, like targeting these drops and getting them would be a little bit easier. They do they're in like the guild shop, and there were like a limit to how many you could purchase each month. So the guild shop would refresh every I think it was every 7 days, but some refresh every 7 days, some refresh every month. So there is a limit, so you can't just buy like 200 of these tickets and just get all the stuff that you need. but it is a way to kind of, hopefully get these items a little bit easier so you're not having to do so many repetitive adventures to get them. But those are things that could, restrict your ability to sell these or trade these to other players. So they also mentioned that RMT is discouraged. They also noted it's very hard to control. It is a constant battle trying to fight off these RMTers. They realize that. They know it's not something that anybody likes other than the people who do it. But it's hard to combat. It really is. As soon as you squash one way of doing it, these people make it their living, right? That they're going to find a way to do it. And it's whether, like, do you want to penalize players and not allow them to trade? Just because, some people are going to, sell the currency on a website or something, it's never a good feeling to be like, oh, well, we can't trade this item because XCOTYJKNWR over here is selling currency, whatever they make their name, because they always just roll their face on the keyboard to make a name. They can focus on combating that and punish people who aren't doing that because of these people, or they can just say, hey, you guys, don't do it. If we catch you, we'll probably ban you, but it's I'd rather have them focusing on making the game better, not punishing everybody for the actions of some. So there's definitely a line somewhere, but where that line lands is definitely a very gray area of what do you do to combat it versus how much does that affect people who aren't doing it as well. So it's a tough thing to get right, and I think it's something that they really should try and do as leniently as possible, because in other games like World of Warcraft, for example, everything is soulbound practically except for junk. And you can't trade anything. You can't hand it off to your other characters. You can't, if you get a drop, you can't give it to your friend because it's soulbound. It makes it very punishing for people who, just want to play the game. They want to enjoy the game. They want to enjoy the economy. They want to be able to trade stuff with their friends. Maybe they got a cool mount drop, but they don't care about the mount. They want to buy a pet instead. They can trade that mount for the pet. So there's so many ways that real players are punished just to try and combat this stuff. And it's good to know that they know that it's hard to control, and they obviously still want to discourage RMT. So I'm sure there'll be some things in place, but I just hope that they land in a good spot that doesn't make us feel punished because we want to play the game. Instead, it makes it, just maybe a slight inconvenience is fine. Just don't punish us. We just want to play the game, enjoy the game the way it's meant to be. And if you catch people buying currency or RMTing, just punish them. But it's hard to get right. It really is. They do have more open world interactions, like kicking chickens or playing frog soccer, to keep gameplay engaging. I know a lot of times, once I got comfortable with some of the people I was playing with, I did make a few new friends during the beta. A lot of times in dungeons, we'd see a frog hopping around, we'd go over and kick it. And then the next person would walk by it, he'd kick it as well, and we kick it back and forth. And, little things like that just kind of spice up the adventure sometimes, so that you're not just, okay, let's go from A to B to C. It's like, oh, there's a snake over there, I'm going to go swat it. Or there's a rabbit, I'm going to go kick it. You can do things like that. And they plan on doing more open world interactions, which is always great. It's really cool. I did enjoy that a lot. They also do have their eyes on some professions as well, things like fishing, hunting, cooking, alchemy. They're being considered. They just don't have a solid implementation plan yet. I'd be more than happy with that being something that's added later. again, release the game, let us play, and work on these systems after that. It's more than okay that you do that. The team is small and has to prioritize features, but they are open to feedback and suggestions. I always encourage people, go to the Discord, go to the Reddit, go to the social media. They are fairly active on there, and you can suggest things, offer feedback, all that, and they're looking for that. Like that, they want to know what people care about, so they can focus on that and not stuff that maybe nobody cares about or only a slight few care about. So definitely give that feedback to them. They are looking for that, especially with these closed beta things, and when they get to early access as well, hopefully at the end of the year here, that they're going to be looking for that feedback on what the players want them to prioritize. They do have activities like pet hunting that are part of the open world, and the pets can be traded. They don't have a robust profession system yet, but it is being considered, probably something later on as well. As far as open world content as well, they also have Hellgates in the open world, which allow group PvE content. We didn't see those in the beta, but I guess there are these Hellgates that open world PvE people can go and do, which is really cool. I do like reasons to go out in the open world, and it makes me think of like Rifts and Rift, where there's like, or maybe Fates in Final Fantasy, World Quests and WoW, different things like that, where there's a reason to go out here and go do this in a group for some stuff, something to do, They were asked about voice chat. They did say it's being considered, but the implementation complexity is uncertain. They don't know how hard it'll be. I do see something in the ability to just walk up to somebody and talk to them. I know there's a lot of ability to be really toxic with that as well. You could run by and just start yelling slurs, things like that. So I've always thought, being able to just hop in Discord and talk with people, or any future voice software as well, I always think that's the better option to go with, unless there's a game that requires social interaction, like verbal interaction, like extraction shooters, things like that. I think it's really something that's required, but in an MMO, I don't think voice chat's that important, where you can just walk up to somebody and start talking to them. Not everyone's going to do it, and there are going to be so many people who abuse it, and it's going to be just so hard for them to monitor and enforce, like terms of service and things like that. So people aren't running by yelling the hard N, hard R, all that. So I'd rather just use Discord with the people I want to talk to or want to listen to, and not have to worry about some random person yelling in my ears. I get enough of that in life in general. So anyways, they are considering it, but it's not something that they're focusing on. They haven't started doing it. It's that they're not sure how difficult it would be. And personally, I hope they just leave that to voice software that's already available. They are planning on solo play for content, or at least considering it, to cater to different playstyles. There are times, and I could definitely see this being something that I would enjoy personally, because sometimes I work from home. And when I work from home, sometimes there's some dead time, and it would be great to be able to be in an adventure or something and just in solo mode, to where I'm not holding people back or being one of those people who queue in and just sit at the entrance. I can just go through it at my own pace, and when I have an extra 5 minutes, go clear the next group, move on to working, so I can kind of switch between that, or maybe people have kids and they have to go take care of the kid, or maybe they have to go walk the dog, or whatever it may be, and sometimes life's interactions don't always plan themselves around your gaming schedule. So sometimes you do want to be able to go at your own pace, and solo play is really great for that. I know that obviously there's some content that solo play is not really good for, like the bosses where you need like a tank, a DPS, a healer. Obviously, you can't solo play those. Solo play PvP doesn't make sense, but PvE content, go into an adventure, go into a mission, doing that in solo, like having that be a toggle, I think would be a very good thing to do. And they know that group content may be more fun and foster friendships, but there's also a risk of toxicity as well. Again, I didn't see very much toxicity in the beta, but obviously in other games where people aren't just so hungry just to experience the game, toxicity does start to creep in and people start, doing some crazy things like queuing in and sitting at the entrance. There was one person I saw in the closed beta here that was on a streamer's screen, and they had a very colorful name. I don't want to repeat it, but they had that name, and then they were spamming things that were related to that name. It is definitely something where toxicity gets in there, and in group content as well, it can definitely invade. So they do see some people, they want to play the game, they don't want to interact with people. And I always think, if that's you should probably go play a solo game. MMOs are meant to be multiplayer. It's literally in the description of the game, massively multiplayer online games. But I can definitely see how some people do want to enjoy the game, but don't want to have to interact with other players. And while there is some content that does need to be group content, I think there is a good amount of content available that could be solo as well. Things like adventures, missions, like the story modes already solo play. So it can be there, and I think it would be worth spending the whatever amount of time, and I don't think it would be much, to make solo play an option in some of this content. Dungeons that can be played solo or in groups are being considered as well to satisfy different players. Story mode in groups is technically difficult due to the need for personalized experiences, and the team does want players to play at their own pace, and they're also considering adding like a skip cutscene after death. Like in some of the story mode content, there's some cutscenes that happen, and then you're put into a battle. If you die, you go back to the beginning of that. You have to go through the cutscene again and manually press through all the dialogue. So they're considering adding a skip cutscene that's available after you've gone through it once. I think it should be something that's available for everyone at the start. You shouldn't have to go through the dialogue. Some people just want to get through it so they can unlock whatever they need to unlock, and then that's how they want to play the game. But at least after a death, yes, there does need to be a skip cutscene button. Changing regions, they said, could be difficult due to some technical issues like moving the character between servers, because obviously, if you're on an American server, your data's there. They have to move it to a European server if you want to go to Europe, or a Japan server. There has to be a way to move it from one server to the next. It also proposes some economic manipulation as well. Maybe in Japan, ore ingots are cheaper, or maybe they're more expensive, so you can go there, sell it, come back to your other server. So there's some complications in that make it difficult to do correctly. I know in the closed beta, once you chose your server, you could not go and start on another server. They did mention that you would be able to do that in the full release. But as far as like moving your account, like your progression to that other server, I think that's what they're talking about here. Like a server transfer, in essence. That's something they want to do cautiously because of those potential like exploits and just the extra technical difficulties of moving characters from one server to another. it's probably not that hard to do that part of it, but the economic things could definitely be something where they'd at least have to put like a cooldown on it or something like that, or make it a paid service so that people aren't abusing it. Especially like as one of the ways to avoid RMT and try and discouraging that, I think not allowing people to move their progression to another server is one of those things I'm willing to give to them so that we can have a more stable economy, so people aren't, the min-max way of making money isn't to start on this server, move to this server, sell your stuff on this server, go to that server, then buy this stuff with the money you just made there, go back to this other server. You don't need to be doing that. If you want to play on a different server, start from ground zero and do that. Make an account there. I think that's fine. But moving progression, I think, is something that probably should not be done, or maybe it's something where, like I was saying, like there's a cooldown on it. You can only do it once every 90 days or something like that, so that it doesn't make it something where it's economically beneficial to do so. It's something you want to do because now maybe you moved across the world and you want to play with people of that area. So there's reasons to allow it, but there's a lot of reasons to not allow it as well. They mentioned that the game is going to launch on PC and console. So that's what they're planning for their full launch. I think early access, of course, is going to be on PC, but when they do a full release, it's also going to be on console. They are considering mobile with crossplay and cross-save as well. They want to make sure that it fits, and their UI elements do kind of resemble mobile-esque qualities. And it's something where if they can make it happen, they'd be more than willing to do so. But their focus is making sure it works on PC and console first. And then, they're not developing mobile versions right now. It's just something they're considering for the future after they've done a full release on PC and console. It would be cool to be able to, play on the PC and then, or on the console if you want to play on the console. And then when you're out, maybe you're waiting for a bus to get a ride home, or you're on your lunch break at work or something, be able to pull it up on your phone and do a quick adventure, maybe log in, do some selling, some buying, some of that stuff, some open world content, something you don't have to invest too much time into. It would be cool to be able to do that on the phone. But obviously, release the game first and then add these extra things in later. And then when talking about their team size, they mentioned there's about 20 people that work on the game, and hiring is ongoing. The training is difficult because I guess they have a custom engine. That kind of makes sense, so I guess they don't use Unity and they don't use Unreal or anything like that. They've got their own custom engine, which is actually amazing. But yeah, it's something where they are, always hiring, or I guess their hiring is ongoing. It's just tough to train people, get them caught up to speed, because they do have the custom engine that they use. They explained their game is a pixel art MMO that's inspired by Zelda, Chrono Trigger, Stardew Valley, and aiming to offer a different MMO experience, which I definitely got from playing the game here. The game features in-game content like bosses, artifacts, cosmetics, trade systems, and a strong player loop, which I agree with all those things. From what I've experienced, it did. Like the Caladrax boss that was in the beta, that was a lot of fun. The artifacts were something, that were something you want to, get these artifacts. Like I keep going back to that campfire, that stinking campfire that I spent the whole beta trying to get and never got. And then cosmetics, obviously you want to look cool and look unique and all that. And then there, the economy, all that. It does seem to be providing, while I didn't get to experience the economy too much because the trade was disabled and there wasn't any market, the other things like the cosmetics. I wanted to get more emotes unlocked. I wanted to, get the dyes so I could change my colors. I was about to buy the way where you can give the warrior a beard as well. So there were things to kind of work towards, and that's always important in these games, because if there's nothing to do, then there's no reason to play the game. So they do have a lot of different a lot of different things you can work towards, which is always great. So they were talking about how boss fights can be made more dynamic with a clown mode that increases the challenge and unpredictability. I know in some of the adventures, Nivelrix, I think his name was, sometimes would come in and offer a contract. Says, hey, I bet you can't do this adventure where randomly the mobs will reflect damage back to you. Or I think there's one where like there's a magnifying glass and you can't move outside the magnifying glass. Things like that. So these extra things, which I guess they're calling clown mode, and this guy does look like a jester kind of thing. It does increase the challenge, and also like gives you a fresh take on what you're doing. It's like playing a challenge mode in World of Warcraft when they had those in Mist of Pandaria, which is the ones I experienced there. It was like you can do this, but how about you do this a little bit harder? Or maybe Ulduar in there would be a good example, where you press that red button for Mimiron and now there's fire everywhere. Have fun, that kind of thing. So I definitely love that, and I'm glad that they have boss fights with that as well. That would definitely add something to do for people who maybe have the boss on farm, but then they get this random event where the clown's there, Nivelrix, and he's like, hey, you want to try this where you can't move out of my sight? Or if you hit the boss while he's glowing, the damage is going to deal damage to you as well. Things that give that extra challenge mode. And from what I've experienced in the adventures that I did with that, the rewards for that were a massive increase. You got, I want to say, 3 times the experience from the adventure, and the drops seem to be dropping a lot more of the cool stuff and more quantity of like the gold events, guild credits, things like that. So I do see this as potentially being something that maybe boosts the drop rate for like the mount or the artifacts or the trophies or the orbs or whatever their loot rewards are. And giving more reward for doing these harder versions. They also mentioned that the players can buy the tickets from the Adventurers Guild to increase the rare item drop chances with monthly limits. That's what I was kind of talking about before, with kind of juicing up these maps so that you can farm this stuff easier, but then it becomes bound to your account. You can't trade it or sell it or anything like that. They were asked about battle passes, and they said that there will not be battle passes due to the high demand for cosmetic content with that, and they want to prioritize dungeons and other features and reward you for playing the game, not for going through the battle pass. So I'm glad they're not doing battle passes. It's just they're doing the subscription, and that's how they plan on monetizing. So I'm glad that there's no battle pass, because it does give you like this FOMO kind of feel, like unless they do battle passes, like I think it's Halo, is that right? There's some game out there that does battle passes, but the battle pass doesn't expire. You can go purchase an old battle pass or start one and then 2 years later go back to it. But most of the games out there with battle passes, it's like, well, if you didn't do it during this month, you just never get the stuff. So I do like that they're not doing the battle pass route due to the high demand for cosmetic content, and they want to, not have to make people feel like they have to log in this month if they want to get this special thing. They can just do that when they want to. So I'm glad that they're against that. They mentioned that the dungeons are actually designed for 4 players, but the matchmaking is done for 3 to avoid trolling and improve fun. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by this. I know that you can start a party of 4 players, and supposedly you can go into an adventure or content with that. I don't know how matchmaking for 3 would avoid people trolling and improve fun. I'm not sure how that reasoning works out. We might just have to wait for the translation, like the captioned video of the interview to really see the context around that one. They were asked about the launch date. They haven't announced it yet due to the complexity of development, and they've made some ETAs before that weren't met, and they want to avoid doing that. They don't want to give us an estimate, and then they don't want to say it's releasing in November, and then November comes around, December comes around, January comes around, there's still no release. So they don't want to announce anything yet. They've already done a lot of evolution based on community feedback, including the open world. This was actually just designed as like a dungeon delver, where you group up in a party of 3 and then do these adventures, and there was no open world. The community asked for an open world, and they're like, yeah, we could do this. We have the capability, and that would allow us to do X, Y, and Z. So they added that based on the community feedback that the community really wanted an open world, like a true RPG. The trophies were added as well. Character customization was something that was added based on community feedback. So again, go to the Discord, go to the Reddit, go to their X, their Twitter, go to their social medias, let them know what you care about. Give them feedback, give them suggestions. They are looking for this, and they do make decisions based on the feedback. It might not be the decision you want, but they at least look at it. So offer it, and if they accept it, good for you. If they don't, there's probably a good reason for it. So, but give them the feedback. They are really wanting to make sure they're making a game for players, not a game they want to play. So, they do want to play the game, but they have the community in mind when they're making this game. So, give them the feedback. They are planning on doing an early access later this year, with the possible additional beta before that. So they did mention like this recent beta, this closed beta test was to, at the beginning of this thread here, was to, test the server infrastructure, test the progression in PvE. So it was a very PvE oriented test. There was a slight bit of PvP in there with these red open world chests that spawned a zone where anyone inside the zone, when the timer expired, would be flagged for PvP, and the last man standing would get the contents of the chest. That was the only PvP available. You couldn't flag for PvP, you couldn't challenge people to a duel, anything like that. But they did mention that they might do a PvP focused beta as well. And then if they did that, they might, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how they explained it. I know they were asked if they would give like fully leveled and fully leveled artifacts and things like that for that kind of test as well. But I'm not sure if they said, yes, that's something we would do, or something they would consider doing. But yeah, it's something that they might do if they need to test the PvP. They might do like a PvP focused closed beta, or maybe an open beta, who knows. But they might do another beta before early access if they feel that's something that needs to be tested before that early access release there. They said that a full launch is going to take longer because of developmental challenges, and no specific date will be promised. So they here that again, they don't want to do any kind of they're not announcing anything yet, because they don't want to announce something and not be able to follow through with it. But they are planning on an early release, an early access version later this year. And by that, of course, they probably mean December 31st. But it is something they want to do. Want being the key word. They're not announcing that it's going to happen. They are saying, this is what we want to do. Okay? So take it with a grain of salt. Don't get overly excited yet. But hopefully, end of the year, we'll have something to play, and that's more than most of us could ask for. And while their full launch doesn't have that, specific date or anything like that, it's going to take longer. So it's going to be in early access for a while, so that people get in there and they can kind of continue testing things, continue working on that community feedback. But the full release, it's going to take a while for that. So if you're looking to play on mobile, you're going to be waiting a while. Okay. Get a console, get a PC. This game does not require a super high-end PC. So if you don't want to buy like a PlayStation or an Xbox or maybe a Nintendo Switch or something, I'd suggest getting like a Steam Deck, honestly. But if you want to be able to play this by the end of the year here, or for the early release, early access, you're going to need a PC to do that. So here's your advanced warning. You're going to need something to do there. And that pretty much wrapped up everything they talked about there. I'll put a link to the Reddit thread in the comments here, so that you can go and look through this at your own pace as well. I do like that they did this interview. It really shows that they are looking to explain their thought process. They want to be involved with the community. They want to make sure that people's questions are being answered. I know I am fairly active in the Discord, and they are as well. Like their community team people are active there. Frost, the guy who did this interview, he'll jump in there several times throughout the day and answer questions. You can at him in there. He's even, people would at him and say, hey, I got this idea for this. I'd love to share my thoughts. And he was like, yeah, DM me, let's talk, So they're very open to the feedback, and this post really kind of accentuates that they want to hear from you. I want to stress this as much as possible. Go to their Discord, go to the Reddit, go to their Twitter, go to their X, find their socials, give them feedback. They want to hear it. They want to make sure that this game is something that people want to play. And there are so many developers out there that are making their games in this closed box where they don't want to listen to feedback, or they think feedback is criticism, and negative criticism is, just to hurt their feelings. And then there's developers like these guys that are, just craving that feedback. That they want to hear what you think. They want to hear your ideas. They want to hear your suggestions. And again, while they may not always act on them, they want to hear it because they want to know what's important to you. So go in there, let them know, because they are listening. Again, like they said in the slide before this here, or this slide rather, the game's already evolved based on this community feedback. They added an open world because people were asking for it. I think this game was supposed to release a while ago, but people said, hey, what's the open world like? There's going to be an open world, right? And they're like, well, about that, there's not really one yet. But they went back and said, this is what players want. They want an open world. They want to play this game, but they want to be able to explore an open world. They went back and they made an open world. So go give them feedback. If you have any suggestions for them, any feedback, if you played during the beta, let them know what you think. I know that they said that they are in the process of making like a form that people who play in the beta can fill out to get, to give them feedback on it. So look out for that. That's probably going to be in the Discord. They'll probably post it on Twitter as well. And if you have suggestions, let them know. Just they want to hear from you. So let them hear from you. They are listening, and give them that feedback so they can make this game the best game they can. So that's going to wrap up the video. I know this is a little bit long, but I just wanted to kind of go through this, make sure people knew that this interview existed, and just kind of go through step by step through there and kind of express my opinions on it as well, my feedback from it. And I encourage you to go and take a look at the Reddit there, give it an upvote if you want to, that kind of thing. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight, and I'll see you in the next video. I do plan on making more of these, so thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.